Hello guys, my name is Michael. I run Child Photography Academy here in Poland, and I thought how to start a YouTube channel if not from something that is simple but really not. And that would be focus. The mechanism we have in our cameras and normally works fine. You start your camera and it focuses on whatever's in the middle, usually, or you point at. And so where is the problem? And let me tell you a story about Peter. Peter got really interested in photography. He got amazed once he bought himself a proper camera and a lens, additional lens that was not very expensive, maybe $100, but was different because it was bright. The aperture of the lens was 1.8, and with this lens Peter discovered that he can take those portraits where the person is in focus and everything in front of the person or in the back is out of focus. So he immediately started taking those portraits which were not possible for him when he took pictures with his camera. And it was great until Christmas came and Santa came. And you know, this guy, he tends to come at night. So when he woke up at 5:30, it's the shouting of his children woke him up. And he grabbed his camera because he knew that he has just 3 minutes to take pictures of this particular moment. So with no light outside, no light inside, just a small bedroom lamp, he started taking pictures and actually discovered that this lens is great because it's bright. There is a lot of light coming in and onto his sensor. So he can go faster with his shutter speed. He can go lower with his ISO and take those night images. But as soon as he looked at his viewer, monitor, right? He saw that, well, the child was in focus, but the toys that his son got, they were out of focus. Also, he tried to take picture of his brother and sister, their relationship, and they were both out of focus. Or one was in focus and the other one was not. And that really was not fine. So he experienced, he discovered that what used to be blessing, this blurred background, now became a curse. And he didn't know what to do because he tried going up with his aperture to say f2.8, but then his ISO went so much through the roof that the images, well, basically, they would be useless. So, well, he got stuck. And you know, that's really what photography is. It's this dance of compromise, because that's the experience we have all the time. We think that we miss something, and if we just had it, we would be able to take those images that we saw on the internet. We miss light, we miss a camera, proper equipment, we miss lens, and if only we could have it. And really, at the time we take pictures, we need to make decisions not about what we want, but what we must deprive ourselves of, because definitely I will not have everything. Let's face it, it's 2020. You've got all those manufacturers, camera experts. They work day and night to create, say, universal lens that would zoom in, zoom out, would be cheap and bright and great quality, but it doesn't happen, does it? Because, well, physics, optics. Like, can you bend physics? Well, you can, and that's what actually they try to do. They build those lenses that are wide and bright, for example, but at what price? You can clearly see that once you get into the lens world, you want to buy some extraordinary lens. The price is above the roof. And so, well, we actually do not do this. Instead, we try to adapt. We try to regard limits as potential, because without limits, you would actually take all the same images that are in your head, but with those limits, you're forced to go other ways. And this is where creativity begins. So that's what I'd like to tell you first, that you don't need all those things you don't have. Well, there will be a point when you probably buy it or get it or test it. That's fine, but here tonight, you need to think differently. And what advice could we give to Peter? Well, first of all, just realize this. Realize that, well, you get plenty of light at night. You get great content, great moments, but you will not have wide range of focus. So what you could get is, well, first of all, make sure that you don't have any other light you could switch on. Because maybe there is, it's obvious, but often we don't think about it, right? Because we're so excited about what's happening. And then if that's not the case, maybe you could buy for $70 something that would give you some light, because that's how much a regular video light will cost you. But even those advices are secondary, because we're talking about getting yourself more stuff, right? The most important thing is your technique. In this case, composition, because the situation you're in is that your focus area is narrow. Means that basically those objects, toys and your children, they won't be in focus at the same time. Not possible, because they are from different distance from your lens. But if you change your angle, you go outside, then if you take those images from side point of view, immediately all those objects are in focus, and then you're done. But would that be actually so great? Most of the time, it's not such a good idea to have everything in focus what's important. Most of the time, you actually want to use the power of focus to point at the most important place your viewer should start viewing your image. So the most important person would be your child, and then your viewer should look at toys which could be a little bit out of focus, and that actually could be better. So the perfect angle would be not completely from side 90 degrees, but maybe 45 degrees. Look at this example and those examples. You've got different images from different angles, and so with different objects in focus and out of focus. And notice that the image with all those people in focus is actually the most difficult to read, because, well, I still need to show my viewers where is the starting point. We've got eyes, and unfortunately they follow one point at the same time. I mean, would look strange if our eyes had this ability to look in different ways, like Sesame Street feature, I guess, something like that. But, well, we don't have that, right? We only can focus on one point at the same time. So your viewer needs to see how he needs to read the picture so that he can feel as you felt. And so with focus, it's easy to create this path. But without that, if we've got everything in focus, that's simply not there. And you need to use other techniques, tools, which are less effective, I'd say. There is one more technique, and that technique came back with new types of cameras, mirrorless cameras, which from 2 years ago, I must admit, are quite amazing. These are simply small computers, and they offer us so much more functionality. And one of the functions that came with those is focus picking. Now your camera can show you where your focus point is, even when you're in manual mode. So imagine this, you can switch to manual mode on your lens, for example, and then your camera will show you on the monitor where the actual focus is. And that is huge, because now You don't need to wait for your camera to make its decision. And that is pain in low light conditions. Often you wait 1-2 seconds for your camera to make its decision where it should focus. And after that time, while your children are gone, they are already eating breakfast, the presents are gone, everything's gone, right? So instead, you just switch to manual focus. You disable your autofocus and you focus manually because you have that information where this is. And then you can be as quick as you want because you don't have to wait for anything. That will make you a professional photographer immediately. You'll be able to take those images that no one else can, because even with best equipment, cameras need light to focus properly. Alrighty guys, so we had to have a break because my neighbor decided to drill some holes, which he hasn't done for like a month, but somehow he decided to do it in this particular couple of minutes that I'm recording that, but will be fine, I guess. And the second part will be to look at some images that feature focus. Those are images that are awarded by our academy, which I have seen or not have seen yet, but I thought it's a good way to choose randomly a few and talk about why they seem to work. And the first one, like that. And what you immediately need to see is that this actually seemed to be more interesting than an option where the girl is in focus and the cup is not. Because if you feature your object in focus and your person not, then what happens is, also because of the color, your viewer first sees the cup and recognizes the object, and the object itself has no meaning. But then he starts attaching meaning to the object because of the person and its emotions, the personality it conveys. So she conveys. So this is much more interesting, really, and creative. And you can do this in case of very simple frames, because there is no doubt that your viewer will finally get to the person. The other case would be like a very complicated wide picture where this technique could not work because you had no guarantee that there will be something that your viewer notices besides the cup. But in here that works fine. So with very simple frames, you can use that technique and it will actually get your images more interest. The next one, we choose category and wait to see what happens. The next one, well, we've got everything in focus. My comment to this would be, well, really the focus range you choose with your aperture. It depends on whether you'll be later able to focus your viewer's attention on the main subject. If you will, then that's fine. And you can benefit from that, because look, all those objects behind, as long as they don't distract your viewer, they add up to the story, to the context, and that's what we actually want. Would the image be better if the background be blurred? Well, we don't know exactly, but we know definitely that too much blur in background makes the image less interesting, because, well, photography is not about collecting information, but information tell us broader story about what's happening with those people in front of our camera. So I guess this is fine. And also, well, probably the idea was to capture the sky, and for that you actually needed something like f.8, f.11, and this is why often this is the aperture we choose for like those beach images. And the last one, I guess, because we've got little time. Oh, that's quite interesting. We've got girl dancing. That's the technique we call autofocus. Such technique exists in photography, and it's quite risky because we can go so much out of focus that the subject is not recognizable. Then the thing with such technique, and basically every time you deprive your audience, your viewer, of details, of exact information, you have this ability, like a chance of making photography timeless and more symbolic. This is because if your viewer has no information of the subject, he will have to add information from their own head. And in this way, you don't tell exact story, but give half of the story, and the rest of the story your viewer adds himself, herself, which can be very good if done properly. I mean, really, there are some things common and there are some things that differ us from each other. I guess in this case, this is quite successful because still the frame is very simple. We've got one object, and that's important. The background does not distract us, and we've got this body language that definitely shows what the activity is. So we've got dance and dance only, and because of the dress, because of the hand movement, leg, perfect timing, which makes those legs definitely in dance position, that frame is effective in this way. So bear in mind that basically some techniques are useful if the frame is simple enough, and that would be the conclusion from the second part. Thank you so much for today. If you're interested in more photography analysis, then please subscribe. I mean, that may be a great adventure. It is definitely for us. Child photography, we believe that's the greatest thing you can spend your time on, especially at those times. In those times. Thank you so much for your time. See you.